Well, hello, YouTube, and happy Halloween from Captain America. Today, we're going to discuss the DraftKings Showdown slate for the Pittsburgh Steelers versus the Baltimore Ravens. Anybody that knows me knows I'm a huge Steelers fan. And let's just dive right into it. When looking at Sportsline, it does say that the over-under for the game did open at 49. It's now at 46.5. Baltimore is the favorite. They're favored to win by 4.5 points. This game is being played at Baltimore. And there's lots of different things and lots of different game scripts the way that I could see this game going down. Divisional rivalry, as a huge Steelers fan, this is always a game we look forward to. These are two fantastic teams, so they can get it done in many ways, on the ground, in the sky. So we'll kind of see how it goes. But if we start breaking it down, we might as well start at the bottom. We'll start with the punt plays, because on this particular week, like most weeks, most games, you will want to look at some punt plays because, Ben Roethlisberger is in over 10,000, Lamar's over 11,000, and that's if you're not even using them as captains. And, you never know, but quarterback's high floor, as we've discussed. So if we're talking about the punt plays for the Steelers, first you may want to look at, as stated in previous videos, backup running backs. First one that struck my fancy, I guess you'd say, would be Benny Snell. He is only $1,800 for his salary. So the good is that the last two games, he's gotten 2 touchdowns because he's basically James Conner's red zone touchdown vulture. But the bad news is he actually has only had 8 total carries in 2 weeks. And 2 games ago, he was on the field for 22% of the snaps for 14 snaps of the whole game. But last week, he was only on for 8% for only 6 snaps, whole game. I probably won't go there. The other Steelers running backs are kind of the only other punt plays that I could see besides like Vance McDonald down there. And I'm not a big fan of backup tight ends, which I'll discuss in a little bit more when we get over to the Ravens side. But when it comes to the Steelers backup running backs too, just like Benny Snell, they would be 100% touchdown dependent or Connor going down, God forbid. But Jalen Samuels, his salary, $600. Anthony McFarland, $200. But like I said, personally, I'm going to avoid the backups for Pittsburgh this game. There's better value for punt plays on the other side. And honestly, James Conner, he is one of them running backs who, he is on the field for the majority of the snaps. And it's only gone up, actually, now that I look at it. In the last 3 weeks, his snaps have went from 63% to 66% to 84%. So, that's a trend that you'll want to pay attention to, and that's something I wanted to discuss on this video because these are things I check, but I haven't actually broke all that down on any video yet. So another thing you'll want to look at is snap counts because oftentimes they trend in a upward or downward way, which we're going to get right into that because, like I was talking about, there's better punt plays on the Ravens side, in my opinion. Guess we'll see. Looking at Miles Boykin, third, fourth receiver for the Ravens. He's only $200 salary, tons of savings. And, the good news is he's been on the field for at least 45% of all snaps all year long. But when you start looking at the numbers a little bit closer, the bad news is by the week, he actually gets less and less. So, going all the way back to week 1, and we'll break it all the way down, all the way week 1 through week 6 of his games. He was on the field 68% week 1, 74% week 2, 82% week 3, and then 54%, 57%, and 45%. So he's gone down every week for the last 4 weeks. No, that's not true, but he's kind of stayed right there and gotten a little bit less, and you can kind of tell that he's being diminished. And also, other bad news, he's combined for less than 10 DraftKings points in the last 4 games. So I'm not going that route, but, if he gets a touchdown or if he catches a deep one from Lamar, considering Lamar might not even throw for 200 yards, he's going to be on the winning lineup if that happens. But the reason that guy has been getting such diminished targets, it would appear, is due to this explosive rookie. And he's also a punt play, Devin Duvernay. He is only $800 salary. And the good, I'd say, is that he somewhat started to take over Boykin as the cheap option at receiver for this team, because Boykin's snap count, started to lessen, as we discussed. Duvernay's has increased every week since week 2, which kind of happens when rookies start to get more acclimated to the offense. And as stated, this man is somewhat explosive. I've seen him play on TV. But week 1, 19% of the snaps. Week 2, 9%. Week 3, 13%. 4, 28%, 29%, 36%. So he is trending upward. Now, he hasn't caught more than 2 or 3 balls on any game yet, but it's a matter of time before this young man just explodes. The bad thing you might want to consider, though, is you just don't know if Lamar's going to be throwing the ball to anyone, as stated, because, a lot of games he doesn't even throw for 200 yards, so those yards are hard to come by when you have Andrews and Downtown Brown that are competing, as well as the running backs that catch it out of the backfield lots. Combined with the fact that the quarterback's going to be running a lot and the offense is a running offense. Eek. The only other person I might consider as a punt play would be Nick Boyle, $1,200 salary. I mean, I'm not going to play him, but he could be considered. He has good red zone hands. He did catch a touchdown last week, but the thing is he's not the number 1 option in the red zone, and he's honestly not even the number 1 tight end on his team. Andrews is obviously always going to be the number 1 option as it pertains to that. Don't want to keep discussing punt plays, but you may also consider who else was down there. I don't know. Nobody really that I thought was worth it when I was looking. I'm not going to use Derek Watt. McLeod might be. McLeod, I mean, he's a Swiss Army knife. He's a Steelers' secret weapon. You just never know. McDonald is stated, but, James Washington might be a sneaky play for only $1,000. He wasn't on the field that much now that Chase Claypool, Schuster, and Deontay Johnson are all healthy, but Ben likes to spread that ball. Anyway, now that we've talked about punt plays forever, I'll go ahead and start breaking down the actual slate. There's lots of studs that look super studly. It sucks sometimes doing a showdown slate for the team that you like because you try not to be too biased. You try not to be a homer, and it's very hard because, it's quite clear in many ways that Lamar Jackson should be everyone's captain, and he will be the highest owned captain. He'll be the highest owned player on the whole entire slate. But do you go contrarian? Do you not? That's always the argument. He also is $11,800 just with regular salary, So you want to make him your MVP. That's $17,700. You're not going to be able to fit in that many studs after that. I mean, that's not true. You'll be able to still fit in studs, but, just depends on kind of how you think that game will go. Big Ben is actually not that different from Lamar. He's only $1,000 difference, which seems kind of crazy because Big Ben, he is very one-dimensional. And he actually, he hasn't been having the best year. It looks okay on paper, but that arm just isn't what it used to be. I mean, he's gotten the last couple weeks, he's gotten 15.62 DraftKings points, 10.98, and 21.36. Respectable, but definitely not like Lamar. If you look at Lamar's game log, I mean, the last game he played 31.24, 14.5, 26.02. And you also have to consider who's going to stop the run today. Or not today, Sunday. Hey, puppy. On this slate, though, I really do kind of struggle with my thoughts on it because, Lamar Jackson is a very good quarterback, but he's kind of struggled through the air this year. He's not the quarterback he was last year. He is averaging 22 points a game, higher than anybody on this slate. I would consider both quarterbacks. I would consider James Conner for sure. I would not consider any backup running backs for the Steelers this week. Andrews, Brown, good choices, I guess. Not a Baltimore fan, so probably not going to play him. Again, that's very biased. Brown does get tons of targets, though. He is a target beast. Let me check my numbers on that, but oh, wrong thing. Yeah, let's see. So last week you got 6 targets, 10 targets the game before, 8 before, 6 before. So yeah, he's going to get his targets, but, you know, Steelers, man. Andrews, as stated, would be good. You know, here's the big dilemma if you are going to play some wide receivers for the Steelers, you know. Smith-Schuster, Deontay Johnson. If I remember right, they both got 15 targets last week. Yeah, Smith-Schuster with 14, Johnson with 15. It's just, how could you not play both of them with all those targets? Targets turned into points. Targets turned into catches, and catches turned into points. So, you know, you almost want to use both of those guys, and it seems silly not to use Ben with them. Sorry, I'm thinking out loud here too. But, you know, how do you not play Chase Claypool? I mean, he had one bad game last week. He will be less owned of the other ones, so if you want to be contrarian, that might be a way to go. I mean, last week, 1 target for 1 catch for -2 yards. But, you know, the week before that against Cleveland, 4 for 4. And Philly, the week before that, 7 receptions off 11 targets. I mean, just 3 weeks ago, this man got 3 touchdowns, 45.6 DraftKings points. He cannot be ignored. It's only 7,200, too. I mean, it just stinks because you don't know who's going to be the number 1, 2, or 3 receiver for the Steelers. It's a good problem for a fan, but not for daily fantasy sports. Ingram is out. Don't think I mentioned that yet, but that being said, I'm not going to be using Gus Edwards. I'm not going to be using the rookie Dobbins. It's not because they're not good players. They're both good on their own accord, but I'm not going to be using a running back by committee whenever Lamar Jackson is the quarterback. I'm not doing it. Both of them are reasonably priced at $5,800 and $5,200. I guess I could see it, but I just don't know who's going to get it, who's going to get the carries. I mean, Dobbins is somebody I'd probably consider more because he's going to be probably getting more catches, but Gus Edwards might get more of the runs. I believe he got like 14 versus 9 last week. There will be people playing the defenses as always. I could see it. I'm not using the Steelers defense because you're not going to get very many sacks on Lamar unless it's just a broken play. This would be a game where I can see where a lot of people might use the kickers because it is over under 46.5. But again, I'd rather take a punt play and see if I can't score on Duvernay getting a 40-yard touchdown. I mean, that's a 10-point play right there. 11-point play if he catches it. And most kickers, they're not going to get that in a week. I mean, Justin Tucker is a great kicker, and not going to dwell on him too much, but he's gotten 16, 10, 8, and 9 points in the last 4 weeks in DraftKings. That's a great floor. I mean, and he's only $4,000 salary. You could save there and get your studs elsewhere. I mean, it's all about fitting in studs. The only other player that I didn't discuss that I will maybe roster and consider rostering, and it's for the Steelers, would be Eric Ebron. The young man has just been getting better each week, I feel like, on the Steelers. I've watched all their games, of course, being a Steelers fan. He's also, in the last 3 weeks, went from 77% of the snaps to 71 to 84. I mean, they are kind of getting Vance McDonald out of there, but you know, the more I think about it, I didn't mention him hardcore. I talked about him, alluded towards him twice, but Vance McDonald is not a bad punt play. I mean, he has been on the field for at least 44% of all snaps on every game for the Steelers this year. So it is something to consider. Ben doesn't throw to him as much. He did before Ebron came around, but he's definitely turned into that number 2 role. I'm going to do a quick scroll through the DraftKings people, or the DraftKings players and just see if there was anybody else that I missed that you might want to consider. Some people will consider Snead. That might not be bad. I mean, he's gotten 2 to 3 targets as well the last couple weeks, but he's 3,000. Just use Duvernay. Why not? Yeah, I'm thinking that's about it, guys. You know, something I tell you every time, but I'm going to tell you every time because I'm not going to forget to tell you in case this is the first time you've listened. You need to not join multi-entries if you're new, unless you're going to put in 150 unique lineups and you want to compete against the best of the best that have algorithms and can put in 150 unique lineups at $10 a piece. I don't have 1,500 sitting around to just bet on fantasy sports for one game, so I will not be doing that, and you should not either if that describes you. Do a single entry, do a $5 or do a $50. I don't care. Do a $100, but do not do the multi-entries unless you're putting in 150 unique lineups. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you would like to subscribe, anything like that, you know where it's at, somewhere over here on YouTube. Thank you. This is your boy Chase Pyatt. Have a good day.